Dr. Daniel Pompa, thank you for joining.
I can't wait for the conversation. Can't wait. Glad to be here.
I wanted to have you on because I just love your energy. I mean, I try to avoid social media as much as I can, but when I'm scroll through sometimes and you come on, I'm like, oh man, the energy just drips through the video and you want to watch it. And I find like I was like thinking to myself, I want to get a more natural dishwashing liquid. I'm like, I know who to look for. And I went and I was like, what does Dr. Pompa recommend?
Yeah.
So,
it's funny because you just got me coffee. You're like, well, we have the machine. You know how to work it. We got it because of you. You have my coffee machine. So I went in and made myself a coffee because I know how to work the machine.
That's right. I was like, do you want the plastic-free coffee?
Yeah,
and then I was like, and my wife's like, oh yeah, we got it because of you, Dr. Pompa.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, then I do know how to operate, because you're like, well, you know how to operate? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe. And she's like, well, we have your coffee machine. I got it because of your video. I'm like, well, then I can operate it.
Yeah. I'm going to send you that bill.
Yeah. Because that machine, it's not cheap. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not. I mean, I'm still using the pour over, as I told you earlier.
But by the way, it's plastic free, but the coffee people that are like, fussy about their coffee, they think that machine is the best, makes the best coffee too. So at this point, it sounds like we're selling a coffee machine.
Maybe they're correlated.
Yeah. So anyway, but maybe, right? Because plastic can obviously offer a taste, but I think it's a quality machine, and that's why they don't have plastic. And it just so happens we care about that. You don't want to run hot water through plastic. That's ridiculous, because all the chemicals that are endocrine disruptors pour out when you run hot through plastic.
Well, your videos about plastic and your discussions about it have actually caused a lot of changes in my house.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
In fact, I'm now it's become a little bit of, my wife's like, you got to stop, because I see it everywhere now. Once you start thinking about the leaching that happens out of plastics, whether cold or hot, you start seeing it. You're like, wait, if I put my polyester clothing in the washer with my organic cotton clothing, what's that going to do, right? Because now you got microplastics just tumbling around in there.
Yeah.
With the heat, it just really starts getting you going.
And by the way, I've hijacked a few people, so you took a little risk bringing me over to your house, right? Because I've hijacked some people in my friend's house where I'm like, oh my gosh, I pull the video out. I'm like, I'm in my friend's house, and look, they're using these sponges, and let me tell you why. These things hold so much bacteria. And then they literally see themselves. They're like, oh my gosh, you did this, right? Or I find that they're using like regular laundry detergent, which don't ever use the regular laundry detergent ever, in fabric softener. And fragrance, this, right? They are protected by intellectual property laws, meaning that, they can put banned chemicals, and they do, in fragrances, and they don't have to tell you what's in it, and they put them in there. So fragrance, whether it's laundry detergent, your shampoo, the plugins, whatever the fragrance it is, they're the most toxic substances. Defragrance your life. People criticize me on social media because they say, oh my gosh, yeah, you're the guy that, I can't use anything. I'm like, no, that's not true. I'm just trying to get you to switch. Right. And God forbid I try not to sell anything, because you get criticized for that. However, if you don't give an alternative, a switch, they crush you for that too. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Most of the time I just say, find it on Amazon. Here's the name, find it. The coffee machine, right? I didn't get a penny from that. I just said, here's the name, find it on Amazon. But you have to give people alternatives, so that people can complain all they want, but they want the alternatives.
It's funny about the complaint. They act as if, I almost never read comments, but once in a while I'll take a look, and they act as if humans have always been exposed to all these chemicals and substances, and as if you are trying to change humanity. No. It's the opposite. Humanity was a certain way forever.
Yeah.
They only were exposed on the electromagnetic spectrum to a very narrow band.
Yes.
They were only exposed in their foods to certain substances forever. They were only exposed to water that had X. All you're really a lot of times saying is, well, this very brand new thing that just only exists in the last 20, 10, 30 years, maybe you shouldn't expose to it.
It's common sense in a way, right? what's happened in the last 50, 60 years. Our health secretary, Robert Kennedy F. Jr., he has said the exact thing. What's happened? The chemical explosion has happened in the last 60 years. And this is why chronic disease is surging. I just had this conversation with you. I had the privilege of being in this incredible event in Aspen, Colorado, and some brilliant people in the room. And they were talking about the billions of dollars going into genetics and, being able to fingerprint people's genetics so we know exactly what chemos and drugs we can give them. And I'm sure with great, intentions, and it may even be good. However, I literally was sitting back going, wow, like they're not even talking about the real problem. It's like, I've been here over an hour. They haven't even brought it up. So simple question is, well, since 1970, there's been a 67% increase in childhood cancers. And by the way, that was the point of it, childhood cancers. There was an incredible teenager that gave his story. He had non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and he did such an amazing job. And again, I'm not criticizing the point of all of this. I just was like trying to get the conversation to go into a different direction, and it never did. But the question was, why? Why? Since 1970, have we had a 67% increase in childhood cancers? And no one really wanted to answer the question, so that is what you're saying. What's changed, man?
Uh-huh.
Not just cancer, but autoimmune, autism. We can keep going down the list. Now, a reasonable answer would have been a lot of stressors change, right? I'll accept that, right? Not just the chemical explosion. Vaccine schedules change. Well, they don't want to hear that at all. Social media, EMFs. I could talk about a lot of things that created a perfect storm, and we have all chronic disease rising, especially in the younger generation. That should concern everyone.
Yeah, and the criticism you often get is you're just picking on one thing. And to some degree, there's a grain of truth in that, because it might very well be that exposure to just one thing wouldn't be a problem. So if your laundry detergent had, not such great stuff in it, you'd probably be okay.
Probably okay. Yeah.
And if, you used a plastic coffee machine,
yeah,
all right. And
probably
if, and if your dishwashing detergent, and if your clothing was all plastics, and if, you over medicalized just in one way, and if you just, and you had just, a lot of pesticides in your food, and you keep going down the list.
Yeah.
But as you're pointing out, there's probably a tipping point for everybody.
There is.
And it's probably different
hand me
for
your
everybody.
tablet, and where's that marker at, Michael? But here's the point you're making. I'm going to draw something that you and I resonate on, because I don't want to gloss over that.
Chart on your? You can pull something up. You want to pull something up?
No. Can I do that?
Sure.
But no.
Oh, yeah.
I just need that right there,
and
that marker Michael already knows, because that's one you got. Okay. First of all, I want to say this. Here is what even science doesn't take into account. So and you know this because for your job, you have to dig into the studies.
Yeah.
They can prove safety on something, right? Looking at a chemical and, whether it's safe or not. But what they don't take into account in studies is the accumulation in the human body. Because how do you even study that, first of all? So chemicals bioaccumulate in the human body. And by the way, that can be a little different for everyone. Some people bioaccumulate things faster than others. So here's the best analogy. And this explains what's happening when someone all of a sudden one day gets sick and they want it to be that one thing. Not so simple. That's a bucket.
I'm a little scared where that's going.
Okay.
Because that looks a little odd.
Okay, so watch.
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't been exposed to enough of my art.
Okay,
that is a basic bucket. That's the way I draw my bucket. Okay, so
right.
You're going to get used to that. All right, so the bucket starts filling when? In utero, Aaron. Okay, meaning from the womb, and it keeps filling to the tomb.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what do I mean by that? We inherit mom and dad's toxins, especially mom. There's a study called the Drash study. It was a German study that showed the number of silver fillings in mom's mouth was proportional to how much mercury they found in the baby's brains on autopsy. So that's very accurate when you're looking at that. So exposure, lead, the number one lead exposure is actually mom, because if you grew up in the lead generation, most of the lead actually went into the bones where the body, sequestered it away, stored in the bones. But here's the thing, during pregnancy, it's very normal because of estrogen shifts to lose bone, out comes the lead in utero. So baby, and those are just two examples, right? So baby starts with a toxic load from the parents.
It actually gets released from the bones
absolutely
during pregnancy?
Exactly, and the lead comes out.
There's studies that
show that. When I lecture, oftentimes I show my wife had extreme lead levels. Guess where she got it? Her mother, who had extreme lead levels, ended up with cancer association. But my wife was heading down the same road with hormone disruption, et cetera. We did a lead test because her methylation wouldn't come up. Long story, that affects hormones. But anyways, her lead was off the chart. We end up, and we eat very healthy. We do healthy things. This is, what I teach. But my son had all these gut problems as a baby. And then I don't know when, neither of us remember when I went, oh my gosh, he got your lead. I just read a study. And I said, we're going to do a lead test on him. And the way to test for it is it's a urine test where you challenge it out. And so we did that. And his lead was off the chart. Fast forward in life in my PowerPoints, you see my wife's lead off the chart, my son's lead off the chart, my next son a little bit less, my next son a little bit less.
So each succeeding child that you had, there was less lead, and you believe that is reflective that your wife had less.
Yeah, and we were doing things along the way to get the lead out. Right.
Okay.
But I joked and said, we'll just keep having kids and, we'll get your lead to normal, honey. So that was a joke, but she didn't like that. But anyways, the bottom line is that from mom to baby, and we could look at microplastics, there's a new study, right? This stuff is being inherited, from the womb to the tomb. Okay. So the bucket, I just said all that just to say that's when the bucket starts filling. And then you get other exposures. We're talking about what the clothes are washed in. Maybe it's the microplastics. Maybe it's a moldy home that your family's living in, right? And that starts really shutting down your ability to get rid of toxins. And then it's the vaccines, that really was a hit, right? And then it's whatever the next exposure is. Boom, the bucket overflows. Now, people think they got sick here, but the fact is this was happening all along. Now, some people genetically have smaller buckets than others. So genetic pathways do play a role. This person could overflow much faster. This person could be the one that stays well longer, where this person gets sick in the moldy home or with the silver fillings in, all the examples I just gave. But see, this accumulation happens and then people end up with the overflow, right? But what you don't realize is, how do you get your life back? Well, you got to empty this, right? And that's a simplified version of accumulation in the body, meaning this stuff bioaccumulates over time. And that's what a scientific study that tells you that this particular chemical is safe at these levels. Not if that's you.
Well, going back to your conference, and you tell me, do you go to a lot of conferences?
Mm-hmm.
So my general experience when it comes to the things that go in that bucket, whether it's the type of fillings and teeth, I know that you talked about that a lot, whether it's the household products, cleaning products you use, whether it's different pharmaceutical products, is that what you often find, at least and you tell me if you agree with this or not, is that the advice, the attention, the focus on what the medical community should be doing always seems to cut in favor of whatever is going to be more profitable. So like, for example, when the AAP, this is, when there were going to be less vaccines used, they go crazy because less money. When chronic disease goes up, you don't hear much out of the AAP about that because that's also more money. And so, when you are coming out and you are basically saying these exposures, each of which is a multi-billion-dollar industry behind them, every single thing you just listed pretty much. Right.
If we look at what's filling that bucket, you look at our health secretary right now, Bobby Kennedy, and think about what he's up against. He's up against, because he believes what I believe, that the chemical onslaught that's happened in the last 60 years is why my children's generation is the first generation not to outlive their parents. Why we see the surge in chronic illnesses, cancer, et cetera, autoimmune, thyroid conditions, because that bucket is filling, but you're dealing with big chemical, big ag, big pharma. He's up against them all.
Yeah,
because he believes that this bucket is what's filling that up.
Yeah, and the biggest irony is that they accuse him of doing this for financial interest.
Listen,
which is the most. It is the most incredible. Arguing black is white and white is black, where and they're, to at least the legacy media in large part, successful in convincing legacy media that somehow Bobby is doing this for the wrong reasons, but these industries, they're all doing it for the right reasons.
It shouldn't even be a political thing. Bobby, I can tell you, I had dinner with him years ago, and before he had any aspirations of running for president, let alone he even know he was going to be HHS, right? But his only concern was the health of children. And I'm telling you, the guy, his heart is real. I don't care if you're on the right, if you're on the left, that man is after the companies that are making our kids sick, and everybody should applaud him. Everybody. How possibly can you criticize this guy when he saved the Hudson and he was pulling mercury out of the air like nobody else? The left loved him, right? It's like, and the right probably didn't, right? They probably called him a fraud. Then he comes over here, the right loves him, now the left it's stupid. He is for absolutely the health of children. And, he said, he makes the comment, for 19 years, I've been asking God for an opportunity, to make a difference, in the health of children. Now I have it.
Yeah, he says that's what he prays for every morning.
Yeah, I know.
That's what he prays for. Yeah. And, he's, there's...
he's one. I was asked a question. It was in one of my little podcast Q&A, Ask Dr. Pompa Anything, who my modern day hero is, and I chose him. It was a safe call because I think both sides should love him. But no, truly, I think he is a modern day hero. I called you that on my podcast interview because, and I'm not trying to embarrass you or, I really mean it when I say it. God is using you for such a time as this to make such an impact, man, with your brain, your skill set, and you are hitting a subject that most people are afraid to hit. And you're doing great work, bro.
Oh, you're right back at you. I mean, even just talking about dish soap, and I mean this, I'm not kidding. It's important because it's not just about the dish soap. I mean it. It's a way of thinking about health that you are promoting. And that's what I love about those videos, is that you're orienting people to think about. It's something I even call the precautionary principle, which is, look, humans have never done this throughout history. What is the new thing we're doing? How could it impact health? Have we shown it's safe? And we shouldn't presume it is. And you're orienting people to think that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's critically important. You start getting people thinking about plastic in one area, and that's what you did to me. You messed up my whole household.
Yeah.
By the way, you said you were in my house and you start taking videos. How'd I do when you were in there?
Yeah. I was looking around.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I need a little more time.
You know what? We're going to do an inspection afterwards.
You offered me blueberries, and my first question was, are they organic? Actually, your sister already told me it's all organic, so you're already doing good there.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'd have been like, thank you, but no thank you, because blueberries are on the toxic top.
Berries are
dirty
terrible.
Dozen. Yeah.
Everything's organic.
Yeah.
Basically. That's low hanging fruit. But even with organic, of course, there's sometimes little herbicides, drifts, and there's other issues. It's like, this is the problem. We start going down this rabbit hole.
Well, there's the criticism oftentimes, right? It's like, so it's worth discussing, because the excuse is, and I get this, and I don't read comments because you'll go nuts. I found myself, when I read comments, I found myself then placating the comments, I found myself saying things for the small percentage that complain.
Oh, you never should do that.
So that's right.
Well, then you should never read the comments.
That's why I don't.
Okay.
because I get I can't read comments. So anyway, the criticism is, well, come on, what are we going to live in a bubble, right? It's like, no, not at all. We can't avoid everything. You're right. It's like, but we have to minimize what's going into that bucket. And that's a choice we make every day, right? If you wash your clothes in a healthier alternative, which they have today, you're going to minimize a massive amount of hormone disrupting chemical that, yes, can lead to cancer, yes, can just cause hormone disruption, weight loss resistance, thyroid conditions. If you put a filter in your house and just filter the water, your chances of getting a thyroid condition like massively lower. I mean, these are things that everyone should do and could do.
But Dr. Pompa, all those people on the, you named the mainstream brand commercial for laundry detergent are so happy and smiley and running around and cheerful, right?
Yeah.
Then that's what people see. These Park Avenue PR media companies are really, really smart. They're really, really good. They know how to persuade you to see things a certain way. And, let's just think, I don't want to pick on laundry detergent, but you wear your clothing all day.
That's right.
You're wearing it all day.
That's right.
And you're like, what's the big deal? You wear it all day. You're wearing that clothing all day long. Even if you're wearing something like polyester, it's not very breathable. That's not something humans have had.
And by the way, let me explain why that's bad, because I said that there are so many hormone disruptors in just the fragrance alone. There's other things in there too, right? But the fragrance has massive amounts of hormone disruptors. Banned substances that they knew caused cancer, banned, but they're allowed to put in it because of these IP laws, which, there's a future job for you stopping that. But the bottom line is people are saying it's on my skin. So what? I'm not eating it. No. Hormone disruptors, think of transdermal hormones. That you put them on your skin and they go right into your blood. That's what these do. And to your point, you have them on 8 hours a day. Oh, guess what? You're washing your sheets in the same washing machine with the same detergent. So you're sleeping in it for 8 hours. Hopefully you're sleeping 8 hours and absorbing it. A lot of hotels have changed because people would go into hotels. You would smell. I absolutely don't stay in hotels where I can smell the sheets. If you can smell the sheets, I make them wash it in water if I'm stuck in that particular hotel. But now I know, because I travel a lot, all the hotels that have changed, they don't use fragrance in any of their detergents. Why? Because people react. People complain now. So, if hotels are making the shift, you need to make the shift because it is toxic. You're wearing it. You're sleeping in it. These are hormone disruptors. They cross into your bloodstream and it accumulates. Again, people also make the excuse that I'm fine and my friends are fine. We're all washing our clothes in, these detergents until your bucket overflows.
To use an analogy from the land of vaccines, where I spent a lot of my time.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, or drugs in general. Yeah, the drugs that kill you immediately. They don't make it to the market. Okay, good.
Thank God.
All right, wonderful. Okay, so the things that will kill you immediately, those often get identified because people just die. It's the things that kill you slowly is the things you should be worried about. You're not going to die of smoking the first day you smoke, or the second day, or the third day.
No.
But over time, it accumulates. And maybe if only thing you do is smoke, okay, that's one exposure.
So-and-so lived to 85, 90, and he smoked.
Yeah, maybe it would have lived longer. Who knows? But the idea is that, and this is, I know you get that criticism for it, and a lot of people do who are promoting health. I mean, shoot. When I tell my kids, blackberries, never eat a non-organic blackberry. I mean, those are pesticides are just like in every single groove. You can't even get them out. And so, they're like, well, what's the big deal? It's probably not a big deal if you eat one blueberry.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's the accumulation of it. And why do it?
That's right. Yeah,
why?
Exactly.
Why do it?
You don't know how big your bucket is, meaning when I say that, Aaron, I'm talking about the genetic ability to get rid of things, right? Your ability to accumulate is different than someone else's, but one day that overflows. If you'd asked me if I was healthy a week before I got sick, I'd have said, I am perfectly healthy. And then my bucket overflowed.
I'm going to complexify this a little bit.
That's what you do professionally.
Just a little.
This is what attorneys do. They complexify things. Professional complexifier.
Which is this, is that, I like the bucket analogy, but obviously human biology is very complex. The immune system, the nervous system, go down the list. And while a bucket overflowing for sure, but there are certain exposures that alone can cause a particular issue and can for some people versus other with a deep predisposition. Maybe like you said, somebody who's accumulated a lot of lead from their mother in utero, maybe that person alone is highly susceptible to tipping a lot quicker just from lead, additional lead exposure.
No, I believe that.
As an example,
Well, because think about that. Let's say they get a mercury exposure and a lead exposure from their mother, right? Okay, already there's cellular detox pathways. That means every cell in our body has the ability to get rid of toxins. If it didn't, we'd die. Okay, simple as that. And if it didn't, you'd trigger every gene because your DNA is in that gene. Genes would be turned on, you'd be sick. So constantly it's getting rid of toxins. But here's the problem. With that first exposure, it can slow down these God-given detox pathways. Now, you're even more susceptible to the vaccine injury. Now, you're even more susceptible when you move into that low-grade moldy home. Now, you're more susceptible to the fabric softener that and it slows the cellular detox pathways down even slower. Now, you're accumulating faster. So to your point, it's more complicated than you think, right? And there's something called what I call the perfect storm. When I'm training doctors, and I have for 20 years, I'm always saying, look for the perfect storm. Meaning, if you remember the George Clooney movie, I'm dating myself. I used to tell people it was the 70s or the 90s or and my son said, Dad, no, it was the 80s. Well, do you remember when George Clooney's Perfect Storm movie was? I had the date wrong and they made fun of me. I don't. Okay, yeah. So let's not even get it because I'll be made fun of again.
You don't want to be a lawyer and complexify things.
Yeah, you don't want to complexify things. But anyway, so 3 stressors. In the movie, 3 storms came together. Catastrophic storm. That was the point.
Okay.
Right? That was the perfect
this
storm.
The ships.
That's right.
Yeah,
that was
storm.
A perfect storm.
Oh, I remember this movie.
Okay.
I remember the movie.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
George Clooney. Anyway, so when we look at people that all of a sudden get sick, well, I say look for the perfect storm. 3 stressors come together. Now, it could be a moldy home, silver fillings, the vaccine, whatever they got from these major sources. It can even be an emotional trauma where someone says, I had, through this divorce, I came out, now I have autoimmune. Was it the divorce? No, it's part of the perfect storm. The body doesn't know the difference of physical, chemical, and emotional, right? So it can be any combination of that bam, all of a sudden someone gets sick. Now, here's the point I want to make. It's not as simple. So I'm complexifying this. It's not as simple as just going, this one thing made somebody sick. Can that happen? I believe it can because things are so, I can give you enough cyanide right now and put you on the ground.
Or give you one vaccine, you can have GBS.
Boom. Just like that, yeah. Right? Because the immune system reacts, boom, 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 puts them in a
Or
state.
maybe it was the tipper.
Or it could have been what I'm saying.
Yes.
The perfect storm.
Exactly.
They already had an accumulation of this.
And then
that's why to say I'm asked this question all the time, so are you. Is vaccines the cause of autism? And I go, well, it's not that simple. It's like, is it part of the perfect storm? Absolutely. Absolutely. Is it the cause? Not, it's not that clear. But I can tell you this, it's such a strong force that it can overwhelm that whole system that gets rid of toxins. It can overwhelm the neuroimmune system. It can overwhelm to the point where brain inflammation happens. I had a patient years ago. She went in to get her childhood vaccines. She had a cap on. She took the cap off the boy's head, 2 sons, took the cap off, threw it in the car. She goes in, gets the vaccine, her kid's screaming. She comes out and she says, is everything all right? Yeah, it's normal. It's normal. It's normal. Are you sure? He doesn't look all right. Mom's instincts are going crazy. She leaves there in tears. She comes back in the car, puts the hat on. The hat didn't fit. She goes back in going, oh my God, his brain is swelling. I can tell. I can see it in his eyes. And he's like, nah, it's normal. Send her home. 2 autistic boys that day that never recovered. And that never even was attributed. They wouldn't even take responsibility for it. I say that just to say, is a vaccine such a strong influence? It could have caused brain inflammation like that. It did in that case. But sometimes it's no reaction until later, right? But my point, though, really is that typically when people get sick, there's this perfect storm. And as a practitioner, I'm telling people, find all the perfect storm and deal with it all. Otherwise, if you just deal with one, and they have these other stressors, they're not going to get well.
I completely agree with what you're saying. Because it's like, why? Because I get the argument all the time too, then why doesn't vaccines cause every kid to be autistic?
Exactly.
well, why doesn't everybody who take Tylenol get Stevens-Jones syndrome? Why do only some get it? Why do only some get X? Why? Because perfect storm, predisposition, and by the way, on the story you just told, it is not controversial, according to the manufacturers of the vaccines, nor in the medical literature, that vaccines can cause encephalitis, which is brain swelling.
Yeah,
in fact,
it says it right in the pamphlet.
Most of the package inserts disclose that. And in fact, many of them also disclose encephalopathy, which is brain damage, as you know.
Yeah.
And it really shouldn't be controversial because there's no controversy that vaccines can cause your immune system to attack the nerves in your extremities, called GBS.
Yeah, GBS.
Just a fancy word for your immune system attacking the nerves in your extremities. There's no controversial that vaccines can cause your immune system to attack your spinal column. Another fancy term, transmyelitis, just means your immune system attacking your nerves in your spinal column.
It's not controversial. It's
It's actually not controversial that vaccines can cause your brain to swell, as well as cause brain damage that's there. And how that manifests is that going to result in a tic disorder? Is it going to result in a seizure disorder? Is it going to result in some behavioral disorder, mood processing disorder? Maybe even the symptomatology that gets diagnosed as the A word.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to the vaccine,
or even worse, the C word. The
C word,
the cancer. Well, we used to get shut down for using the word cancer. I don't think we're getting shut down anymore for that. But
they're going to shut me down. Shut me down.
Yeah, exactly. So we could, I guess, use that. But the point is, though, is like, where does that start? Where did that start?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very, like in that story that I just told, it was pretty immediate, but they still didn't buy into it, right? But it was pretty immediate. Boom. Hat didn't fit, coming out, bam. But how many times is it really delayed, the damage, and yet it's harder to attribute?
Well, I mean, a baby can't talk at 2, 4, 6. Now I don't want to get into vaccines, but a baby can't talk at 2, 4, 6 months of age. They can't express what's wrong. How do they express something's wrong? They scream. High-pitched screaming, that's typically the sign of encephalitis.
That's right.
Of brain swelling. And so, not everybody is going to get injured from X drug or X exposure of any kind, but some are. And so, you go into a doctor's office and you say, my kid's screaming because he just took X antibiotic. They'll give you attention because they were just in a car accident, because they just fell. Pick any reason other than vaccines.
Yeah.
And you will get treated.
Yeah.
You say vaccines because we have these families and come to our firm. We have to get their medical records. And just like you described, not only do they get sent home, they get a nasty note put in their file. A nasty note.
Yeah.
Almost like saying the parents got a psychological issue that they even would attribute to vaccine.
Oh, you get labeled. And, I interviewed Jenny McCarthy. You should interview Jenny McCarthy.
Love Jenny.
Let's make that happen. But, she was the original label of anti-vaxxer. Do you know that story? I'll let her tell, but I'll say this. I'll just kind of tell the quick part of the story. She was approached by a young man who was hired to basically ruin her life. Literally expose her, make lies up, basically blog against her. And he came to her and said, I was hired to literally ruin your life. I was hired to, call you an anti-vaxxer, blah, blah, blah. He's like, but I turned the job down, but I'm warning you that, this is what's going to happen. And she said, that was the weirdest thing. That was odd. Who was that guy? She took light of it. And then everything that he said, even though he didn't take the job, he was basically saying someone's behind me, they will take the job. Everything happened exactly as he said. So she was the first labeled anti-vaxxer.
And for anybody that finds that surprising, why would it be surprising? If I'm selling X brand of car, I'm going to attack Y brand of car.
Yeah.
I'm going to go after those who go after my financial interests. And if she's going out and you've got a multi-billion-dollar, profit stream, and you're going to have $1 billion budget to protect your profits and for your product, you got somebody saying bad things like Jenny McCarthy.
Yep.
Of course you're going to go after that person.
You must have loved the movie Dark Waters, right? Because it was the same with the chemical right, C8, which is a forever chemical. And the cover up, I mean, these farmers' cattle are dying, people are having cancer, right? And they were just brushed off. I mean, it's no different because it was about big, big, big money, right? And this attorney, like you, going, this can't be. Matter of fact, his firm actually defended these chemical companies, right? And so here he is listening to this farmer tell this story. And to the point, the more he dug, and there was something in him that kept him digging. And by the end, he's fighting for these farmers and exposes this whole thing on these chemicals that are causing cancer, et cetera. And the chemical company knew, of course, but dark waters, people should watch if they haven't. But it's what we're talking about, meaning it happens in every big industry. And that's the point you made with the bucket. It's like what's filling that bucket is billions of dollars of industries filling that bucket.
And the thing about holding company, like in dark waters, you could hold them accountable because you could find one exposure and you can connect it to one exposure, right? And so,
like Aaron Brockovich,
right?
Yeah.
Or even like, for example, glyphosate, as you pointed out earlier, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, they're able to connect it to those who are applying Roundup consistently as part of their profession. They can connect that because of the, constant exposure. Yeah. But what about those who have more casual exposure to Roundup? But it's that plus X plus Y plus Z. The way that the tort law works in a lot of the states, if you can't attribute causation to something specific, it becomes very difficult to hold them accountable. So micro harms, as I call them, especially when there's multi-hits, like you're just pointing out, it's like hit, then you have the issue. Now, unless that last hit, there's a consistency to it, so you can hold them accountable, right? It's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard because you're like, well, what caused that? A lot of times you don't know what caused.
And is that part of the difficulty in the vaccine argument versus?
Oh no, that's not an issue with vaccines.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
No, the issue with vaccines. Oh no. Oh no.
Well, because people's minds were going there.
Oh no, with vaccines, that's boy. No, vaccines are unique. You know this, right? Vaccines is not because of that issue. With vaccines, oftentimes the injury, the temporal relationship, there's no differential diagnosis. There's biological plausibility is clear, but the manufacturer has immunity under the National Child Vaccine Drug 1986.
And by the way, do you know that that same immunity is chemical companies are trying to get that? Glyphosate is trying to get that right now.
I tweeted out about it when the first time they tried to do it. Yeah. I said, "Oh, they're learning from vaccines."
Yeah, liability shield
that got shot down.
Yeah,
but it's back in the bill.
And aren't they trying to in each state trying to make arguments for it statewide?
So certain states have passed laws. I think there's 3. I need to check this. Somebody's going to check this later, but check me. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe there are 3 states that have already passed laws. Could be mistaken. That grant immunity in those particular states to some degree with glyphosate, but nationally on the federal level, they want that immunity.
What's coming up next week, couple weeks with glyphosate? There's a decision being made about glyphosate. Now, it was now just recently protected under the national security. Meaning they're saying, hey, if we just get rid of this chemical, because people are asking the question, if this is so bad, why wouldn't we just get rid of it? But the problem is we have corn, 98% of the corn will not grow without it. Soybeans won't grow without it. Plants, because the soil's so bad, they need the chemical. Even the farmers who hate it make the argument, is it being protected really under that? I mean, I'm going to flip this on you. I get so excited because I know you know the answer to these things.
Well, I have an opinion about it.
I want to hear it.
Strong opinion. I don't know if I have the answer.
They want to hear it.
But I got a strong opinion about it.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let's just what glyphosate is. I mean, just to put it in a box. Like, what are we talking about? We're talking about a weed killer. Yeah. Right? And glyphosate is actually pretty simple as far as I understand, based on the literature I've read, which is there are 22 amino acids out there that make up all proteins and peptides that are the building blocks of life. All your neurotransmitters, your muscle tissue, enzyme.
You sound exactly like the company's telling how safe it is. Just amino acids.
Well, you didn't hear the end.
Yeah, I know.
Yes,
this is what they say.
I do until I get to the last part of this, which is, and they do a good job selling it, so I'll take it as a compliment. So and so almost everything in your body relies on these amino acids. Well, the most abundant amino acid is glycine. And it's also an essential amino acid for weeds to grow. And so all glyphosate really is a modified version of glycine. It's a synthetic form that apparently is selectively incorporated over natural glycine. So
the weeds suck it up.
Suck it up. And as they're quote unquote trying to grow and create, have the functions that occur cellularly, metabolically, and so forth, if I can use that term for in a plant. I'm going to take liberties.
Yeah.
It's going to selectively incorporate the synthetic version. But the problem is that then it doesn't work. Those functions in the plant, and it dies.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you don't want synthetic glycine roaming around your body and being selectively or in other ways being incorporated. That's really, really bad. Okay. And you can, I hope I uncomplexified that.
Yeah, no, okay. You did. Because
I layman do that okay?
You don't want the synthetic glycine that plants need to grow in your body because it causes problems.
Serious problems.
And it leads to non-Hodgkin lymphoma. At least it leads a lot more than that. It opens up your protective blood-brain barrier. It opens up your gut barrier. It's driving autoimmune. Right now the attorneys are going after this because it's an easy proof, but it's going to be autoimmune next. It's going to be this cancer next. It's linked to a lot of problems.
It's linked to a lot of problems, but it goes back to what I said earlier. You're going to have to show that you're going to really have to isolate the glyphosate as the cause or a material cause. That sometimes is hard. The science isn't there. It's complex to do, right? So in any event, your argument is that, so many farmers use glyphosate at this point that it's basically a national security threat if we don't have it because we won't be able to grow food. I'm going to tell you something.
By the way, people got very mad at Bobby because this was brushed under and given through national security protected, and they're blaming Maha and Bobby.
Well, Trump signed an executive order making glyphosate a national security risk to not have it. So we have to protect glyphosate. We have to have it, which obviously is almost like it's like a complete slap in the face. The whole Maha movement,
right? But
your argument is that you can't grow crop in America without it. Now
we're in a pickle.
Well, you know what? You know what the amazing thing is?
It's the amazing thing.
It's amazing that when somebody's pecuniary interests are in the crosshairs, how quickly they can adapt. Do you know? Isn't that great? Yeah. Isn't it amazing how companies retool almost overnight? They're we can never change. And then when they face liability, they change. Whoa, asbestos safe, building materials, all of asbestos, boom, overnight, the whole industry changed once they actually were going to realize that's it. There's no,
done.
They're done. And they'll turn on a dime.
Your point is, let's hypothetically say we make it done. You can't use this anymore.
I'm not saying you don't use it. I'm saying let them be held accountable. Let them pay for the damages and let them adapt.
Oh, no, yeah. So what you're saying is, number one, they'll either find a safer product if there's such a thing, or they'll figure out, they're going to have to find a safer product because they're not going to not sell a product because that's how they make money.
They're not going to not sell.
So, but typically what happens is they shift to another product they're already probably working on that's a different amino acid combination that, they're going to push through. So when this gets too heated, they jump to this one. That's typically what happens. Okay, but we still have the problem. We still have the problem of there is a legitimate truth to crops will not grow without it because like a child who is on antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic, their immune system is decimated like our soil is decimated. And now we can't grow crops because we need something strong enough to get rid of these weeds because, again, bad soil, a lot of weeds. Good soil, less weeds, good plants, right? So we do have a little problem on our hands as far as now. There evidently is a lot of research going into regenerative soil projects. They even have lasers now that are, able to zap the weeds, right? So they have some answers on the weed problem, but now we have a soil problem.
Well, you're talking about they can't grow a lot of corn?
I complexified this whole problem.
That would be you're luring it up.
Yeah, I'm learning.
I mean, listen, I stand. I've watched. I've been involved with and have seen from the sidelines industry after industry being sued over their products and major harms they cause, and the refrain is always, "Well, you're going to bankrupt this, you're going to destroy that in the economy." And it's amazing how quickly they adapt when they have no choice.
I mean, but Aaron,
every lawsuit, the defendant's like,
billions of dollars have been awarded. I said millions the other day and someone corrected me. Billions now have been, awarded to the damages of glyphosate in just one condition, I think, right? Is just non-Hodgkin's?
Yeah, it's mostly for the cancers.
Okay.
That's right.
So, I mean, my gosh. I mean, are they panicking over that? I mean, are they worried? Okay, it's this, it's that, next it's going to be that. Are they making a shift or are they just laughing at the number?
You mean Bayer? You mean the company that owns
Bayer now owns
Monsanto?
Right? Used to Monsanto that makes the chemical.
They're laughing.
I mean, are they concerned about the billions of awards? Right? Because if you walk into Home Depot right now, you see Roundup.
They're still selling it.
That's glyphosate. The active ingredient.
Well, if they're still selling it, they've concluded that they could still make more money selling it than from the damages they probably are going to have to pay out. Think about that.
Yeah, but if I was on their board, I'd be saying, look, we got to either put a stop to this, or we have to figure out a new chemical. We need our research to figure out a new chemical that's not this anymore.
They might have it.
Yeah. Okay.
First of all, why would their board say they need to stop if they're still going to make more money?
So it's just a math equation.
That's how businesses work.
Yeah.
That's how they work. I mean, the old, the Pintos that used to blow up.
Yeah.
You know about this case, right? So the Pintos used to blow up, and they, in discovery, what they found is that the company had done the math.
Oh, yeah.
And they figured out to pay for about 20 or so people that burned alive every year in their cars.
The gas tanks were too far in the back, and if they got rear-ended,
to pay for the people that were dying every year burned alive would cost less than to fix that issue. And so they continued, they didn't correct the issue because the math came out the other way.
How do you sit in a boardroom? Doesn't somebody, maybe there's 20 people, one of the 20 go, well, wait a minute. I know the math goes that way in our favor, but wait a minute. What about next week, a month from now, it's going to happen again, and we just took a life and we could have did something about it and we didn't. How does that go? How do you put 20 people that agree with that? I mean, I'm asking an honest question.
Yeah, well, I would say two things about that. First of all, I think that, is that humans have an amazing ability to rationalize things that are in their interest. Also, an amazing ability to remember things in a manner that suit their interests. I've seen this in lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. Think about what most lawsuits are. What are they? They're recreations of facts that happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what a deposition is. That's what a trial is. What happened a lot of times, because the facts are in dispute, right? And so you get one person in a room and they tell you a story. And I'm going to tell you, I've been in those rooms. They believe it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You get the next guy in, he tells you a story, they believe it too.
Absolutely.
And there's no way they're both true.
Yeah.
They're not possibly true. It's not like they saw it differently. The facts literally cannot both be true, but they both believe it because that is the human mind. That's just the way humans are. And so when you got those 20 people in that room, I can easily see in the same way those people who, promote vaccines at the CDC are like, well, we're saving far more lives than we're ever hurting.
Yeah, see,
so it doesn't matter.
That's kind of an easier sell.
These folks, they're like, we're feeding the world.
Mm-hmm.
Without us, we wouldn't be able to feed the world. I'm sure they can easily rationalize it. And then the second point is, how do you know they haven't developed the alternative? But they're waiting until they have to deploy it.
When the numbers don't add up anymore.
When the numbers don't add up anymore.
Then they flip it.
Maybe they even have the solution.
Yeah.
To grow something in the soil without glyphosate. Maybe they already have it. maybe they're just, I don't know. I'm speculating on that. I have no idea.
I sat in a van. It was in Park City from the Montage, and they were having, Monsanto was having a conference. And the odd thing was I had to take the van down, and in the van was all the high-ups in Monsanto. And within short order, I'm listening to this conversation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe where I am right now. And they're talking about what we're talking about.
Wait a second. You're in a van with the high-ups of Monsanto?
A shuttle van. Imagine a shuttle van that has 20 people, right?
When is
Park
this?
City, Utah. Montage, from the Montage.
Just recently?
I was having dinner. No, this was several years ago. Several years ago. Having dinner.
Just happened to be on this bus?
Yeah, happened to be on this bus.
Okay.
It was the same bus. They said, hop on the bus. It's taking them down to the Park City. They have a shuttle that goes from Main Street, Park City, up to the Montage. Anyway, so I'm on this bus, and here I am with all these Monsanto employees. And I'm listening to this conversation, and I can tell you, and I use this story to say exactly what you said. Trust me when I tell you, these people believe in their product. The conversation was, ha, 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 people are dying. Their conversation was, these idiots that want to blame our product on cancer, they're fools, da, da, da. They really believe they have a good product. They really believe their product is generally safe. And yes, some get injured, but look, they said what you said, but look at the lives we're saving. Look at the food we're growing. We're going to change, we're going to solve the Earth's problem, hunger. That was the mantra. I mean, it was almost raw. Yes, we're saving America. And they believed it, or they're saving the planet.
Well, then
America.
I rest my case.
Yeah, exactly. So I watch it. So I always use that story when I talk about the vaccine companies. When I say, look, there's no doubt.
And it's not because they're bad.
That's my point.
That's a human condition that you see over and over again.
There's some high ups in the vaccine world that probably know the truth. They're hiding. They're scared. The gentleman in the documentary
that I deposed.
deposed, right? But most of them really probably believe that we're saving the world. I mean, that's.
Those folks also believe it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Dr. Stanley Plotkin, the godfather of vaccines.
Yeah.
He recently sent me a letter.
Oh no! So my interview with you on my podcast, he sent you a letter after that.
I believe it was after that.
Yeah.
He wrote me a letter, and he told me that he's going to be credited with saving millions, and I will be credited with causing death and disease.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
I wrote him back a letter.
Oh, hi. Give me the synopsis.
The synopsis is, you should read it.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll enjoy it. It's on my Substack, and I put it on Twitter. You should read the exchange. I think that it, in many ways, encapsulates so well a lot of what we just talked about.
I'm going to be sending so many people to watch this. I want you to explain a little bit about Stanley Plotkin. I mean, the Plotkin gavel, is named after him, right? His name.
You want me to tell you who he is?
No, because I'm going to have people watch this and be like, who are they talking about? Right, and you depose this guy for 9 hours.
And then I want to get into how you got into all this.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right, yeah.
So, because this is actually a little bit about how I got my initial, in some ways, introduction to vaccines was deposing Dr. Stanley Plotkin.
Mm-hmm.
He is the world's leading vaccinologist.
He's the man.
He is the medical textbook on vaccines is called Plotkin's Vaccines. I actually have it on the bookshelf right there. You want to grab it?
Yeah, grab it. I want to see it. I want to see it.
Bring it over. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Michael.
Wow. So this is their Bible.
Or the medical textbook on vaccines, right?
Yes.
There it is.
Plotkin's Vaccines.
He's one of the 4 editors. And so, this was the 7th edition. I think they're on the 8th edition now. And not only that, the gavel used at the vaccine committee at the CDC is called the Plotkin gavel.
Yeah.
He has developed 6. He's involved in developing 6 of the vaccines on the schedule. I mean, there's Dr. Plotkin, and then there's far down everybody else.
Everyone else.
I mean, in terms of the influence and impact they had on vaccinology, the modern vaccine schedule is in many ways shaped by him.
He is their hero. He is the god. He is the man that everyone looks up to.
Yes. I mean, what he says about vaccines.
Accredited for millions of lives, so the award he's getting, that's who he is.
Yes. Well, he's here, I'll give one factoid on that to support that, okay? Which is that when he says something, it's cited as if it's a fact, irrespective of data, proof, evidence, doesn't matter. In the introduction of this book, he says nothing has saved more lives on this planet other than clean water, other than vaccines, except for clean water. So he's saying clean water, vaccines.
Bold statement.
Bold statement. Bold statement. Nothing else, right? Not sanitation, not better, nothing else. Which doesn't stand up to the most mildest scrutiny. You know what he cites for it?
Himself?
Nothing in this book.
Okay.
It's right there in the intro.
No, but there's places where he actually cites himself, you know.
Right. Okay. Then, in subsequent articles, everybody out there cites this thing. Everybody. And what do they cite to? Him. And what does he cite to? Nothing. And even when he writes articles, he cites back to himself.
Yeah, that's
my favorite part about it.
Yeah, it's
I
nuts.
have that. I have that all in my book.
That's a God complex.
So it is, that is, and the foreword's by Bill Gates, so it's all true. In any event, that is Dr. Stanley Plotkin is, and I had a chance, as you know, to depose him for 9 hours about 8 years ago.
I in my interview with you, I asked the question. I'm like, you went into this like anyone would, thinking vaccines are good. Vaccines, there must be a lot of science here. You thought there was going to be a ton of science. After 9 hours, you're like, they have nothing. You were shocked.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I've been repeatedly shocked, actually, for many years, over and over again when it came to those products. And in many ways, that's what opened my eyes to everything else, right? Which is, when it comes to health, my overall view is, one, I want to see the primary source.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see the underlying data. I don't want conclusory statements about anything. And two is precautionary principle. If humans have not done this ever, and we're just doing it, and basically you need a multi-million-dollar TV campaign to convince me it's good.
Probably not good.
It may not be good.
Yeah.
And I need some convincing.
And you may not die right away, but where are you at in 20 years?
Right. Where's your health going? We should be, life expectancy is going down, not up. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
All right. How did you get into this?
Pain to purpose. I didn't choose any of it. I wouldn't have done any of it. Honestly, 1999, I just started getting some fatigue, and I was training. I was running a very busy practice, training because I loved cycling, right? So, two, new babies, if you will, newly married. Life was very good, actually. But fatigue hit, and I thought I was overtraining, slowed down. I was, someone who really studied the art of training. So I knew, it could just be overtraining. Took time off the bike. Couldn't take time off work, but work wasn't stressful. I loved what I did. And so it got worse, not better. And then I would return to just trying to pedal. I'd do, 300 miles a week. So riding, 5-10 miles is that's just nothing. I could do that in my sleep, and I would be fatigued, and I'd be like, wow, I just took all that time. So I knew something else was wrong. Then it was weird anxiety. Then I started getting insomnia. Then I started getting digestive issues. Never had those. Then I started sound sensitivity, irritability, anger. I became someone I wasn't, and unfunctional. And I half the time couldn't even go to work. I was embarrassed because I was the healthy guy. And so I was, of course, people close to me knew something was wrong, but my immediate, my mother, father, sisters, I hid it from patients, hid it from them. Fast forward, figured out what was going on. Took me some years. I've tried everything. I chased my thyroid, chased my adrenals, chased hormones. I did what most people do, right? And the internet wasn't back then what it was today, but I was going in the library and, using microfiche. That's you remember what that is? Maybe not. Okay. Anyways, and I was going to libraries, reading people's book. And then one day, I found Mad Hatter's disease. And I was like, this is me. And I don't know if you know what that is, but they used mercury, even lead, actually, to make felt hats, right? Mm-hmm. So they became known as Mad Hatters. They were acutely poisoned from mercury, heavy metal poisoning. So I went to the head of toxicology, Allegheny General Hospital in Pittsburgh. I remember I spent $5,000 some on blood work because I had to pay for it out of pocket, right? I didn't have insurance, But anyways, long story short.
This was in 1999.
Yeah.
That was more money back then, too.
Yeah, no, it was. We remortgaged our home. I was my practice was going like this.
Because you were so not well.
I mean,
you couldn't even work. That's how unwell you were.
Yeah, I would come in and just hope for cancellations. I'd come in and be like, looking at the books, going, "Oh, good."
Jeez.
It's like, and I would lay down in between patients asleep. So like my staff knew something was wrong, right? But I was making a lot of excuses, but it became painfully, obvious that something was not right. I even had a partner in another practice, and I remember the day that I had to go tell him. And I get emotional here because it was really hard for me, and when I went up to his house to say, like, I'm sick, man, it was, I don't know. It was embarrassing. It was humbling. It was like so many emotions wrapped up in one, and the day I told my parents, I know where I was. And the day I told my sister, and I didn't have an answer then, so finding this Mad Hatter's disease, I had a lot of hope that I had mercury toxicity, but the blood test came back negative. Well, it showed levels, but safe levels, right? A year or so later, I'm working with this endocrinologist, my blood work for thyroid was normal, but I had every thyroid symptom. And by the way, I preach and teach that today. Like, there's a reason for that. They just don't tell us. It takes years of thyroid dysfunction to actually, before you get a diagnosis. But I was chasing all that, and he said to me one day, I think you might have mercury poisoning. I said, oh, I thought so too. But I did a blood test. It was negative. He's like, no, that's the wrong test. If you had acute mercury poisoning, like the Mad Hatters, getting it more daily, you'd see it in the blood. But I think you might have chronic. It was my body temperature is really low than not. I mean, he had a lot of reasons why, and it's probably the same reasons I thought.
Meaning it's not circulating in your blood. Right. It's already deposited everywhere.
Yeah. So he said, try to challenge it out. Do this test. And I did. And I saw the levels in the high range, but I saw a lot of other heavy metals.
You took something that would cause it to release
water-soluble chelator.
Took a chelator.
And
took your urine before and urine afterwards.
Absolutely.
To see what the difference was.
Yes. And oddly, when I took it, I felt like, whoa. I felt like normal.
While you were on the chelator.
While I was on the chelator. Then when it kind of went away, I felt even worse. So I knew without a result, something happened, right? And so he explained that. But the bottom line is, I asked the question that most people would ask, where do you think I got this from? He said, did you have any dental work around when this happened? Because one of the number one sources is silver amalgam fillings that are 50% mercury. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, because I had this gold filling. So I looked at my cycling journal when my symptoms started. I called my friend who did the dental work. Hey, when was I in there? And he gave me the dates. And I'm like, that's it. It was just days later that the symptoms started. I just never
literally
correlated.
Days
later. So here's what happened.
You had them removed?
I did.
How many?
My bucket overflowed that day is what happened.
How many?
I had 2 big ones removed. Now, look, I could look back and go, oh my gosh, I had this candida issue. Candida loves mercury. So there was signs that this was building up. There were signs, even as a kid, there were signs. I'd get these things on my feet. I had all these signs, but I did healthy things. I ate all home cooked meal. I didn't eat fast food. We didn't have glyphosate back then. I mean, I was healthy, but this mercury was building up over time. And then I also had another part of the perfect storm. I wore contact lenses, and that till the early 90s, 70s, 80s, early 90s, they had thimerosal in the saline solution. And unknowing to us, we were squirting it right in our eyes.
Which is mercury, which is a form of mercury
derivative. Exactly, yeah. So I had that exposure. I was also in a low-grade moldy home at the time, which I would have tolerated. I was tolerating it. But when he drilled these fillings out, mercury vaporized. That's why I thought it was the anesthetic.
He didn't have a protocol to absorb it all?
He does now.
Okay.
Yeah, he has apologized. That's a whole story there. He's done the right thing. He changed his practice. But anyways.
But the whole isolation and the whole thing.
By the way, once I figured this out, I brought him all this literature on it, right? And he's a very nice guy, right? But it sat on his desk. And then one day I get a call and he says, hey, I want to take you and Marilee to dinner. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And I wasn't completely well at this point yet. That was definitely better. And he said, first of all, I want to start. And he had tears in his eyes with an apology. You brought me all that information. Yeah, I remember. Did you read it? He's like, well, finally I did. And, man, I'm sorry. It was like one of those vaccine conversations where, pediatrician wakes up. And anyway, so he's like, I just believe the ADA. The ADA for years, the American Dental Association for years said, that mercury's bound up. There's no leaching. Okay. We retract it, leaches a little bit, but in allowable amounts and small, it doesn't matter. It's still considered safe. And then, then dentists would even say, it's been in there 20 years, these fillings. It's all gone anyway. I mean, there's been so many things. Right. What people don't know is these dental fillings, before it goes in your mouth, it's considered hazardous waste. There's a grade 3 toxin. And by the way, when it's in your mouth, it's safe now. But when it comes out on the dental tray, it's handled as
biohazard.
Biohazard.
Just like the mercury-containing vaccines, if they fall on the floor and break, you have to get you have to get a biohazard.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
yeah. But anyway, so the bottom line is that when he drilled it, and then here's what else happened, Aaron. He put a gold filling in. Okay. Now, I still had a bunch of silver fillings in. Something called galvanism happens. What that means is you have a battery effect in the mouth. 2 opposing metals and an acid. That's called a battery. And what happens, unfortunately, is the mercury in the other fillings starts pouring out 10 times faster than normal. So
because of the gold filling on the other side?
Because the galvanism, gold and silver, they opposing metals. And it could be a crown somebody has. Any 2 opposing metals and acid, that's battery. And it's current. By the way, when I took the gold out, I didn't even get the fillings out yet, okay? Because I was studying on how to get this out safely and how to get the mercury out of my brain.
Because you had done 2 only so far.
Yeah. But when that gold came out, it was like the galvanism went down. And I'm telling you, it was like a level of anxiety went away. It was like I could sleep, not perfect, but better. Just because that electrical current of the 2 opposing metals, the battery effect went away. The brain hates it. And then as the fillings came out, you get this kind of a honeymoon feeling where it's like, I feel better. But then, see, what people don't realize, people watching this that have had, I got my fillings out, thank God. Here's the problem. That vapor, mercury vapor, comes off of those fillings for the life of the filling. Have you ever Googled a smoking tooth video?
No.
Okay. It's fun.
How long is the video?
Not long, 3 minutes. Anyways, they take a 25-year-old filling. That's important because at that time they were saying old fillings are okay, keep them in. They hit it with an eraser and just to kind of imitate chewing. And then mercury vapor comes right off on a fluorescent screen. That's what the video shows. But that vapor goes into the brain. Here's the problem. It turns to inorganic mercury. And there it's locked with a half-life longer than we live. And so fast forward maybe 20, 30, 40 years, and now all of a sudden you get a diagnosis of dementia. Now all of a sudden it's some neurodegenerative disease. Now all of a sudden, most of my mercury, and by the way, other studies confirm a lot of that mercury goes right into your pituitary, hypothalamus. That's what regulates all your hormones. That's your control tower.
Yeah.
Right? So here I am chasing my thyroid. Here I am wondering why my adrenals are blown out all the time, like so many people do. And the problem was the control tower. At one point,
the master
gland
hormone controller
was poison
for your body.
And that mercury was right there. So then that put me on a massive track to figure out how to get these out safely and then how to get the stuff out of my brain. Everything I've taught doctors for 20 years is what I believe God showed me. And by the way, I can never tell this story without saying this part because it's the most important to me. During that time, my wife, of course, was on her knees crying out to God for many times because, life got very hard. This one particular time, God, she says, as clear as day, spoke to her heart that not only am I going to get him well, but he's going to take a message to the world. When she would tell me that, I would get so mad because I would say exactly this. I can't even get myself well. I don't even want to hear that. I thought she just conjured it up to make herself feel better. I don't know, or to make me feel worse. Either way, I literally was trying to push her out of, I did everything to try to get her to leave me because I felt that sorry for myself, or I don't, you go through some weird things of depression with mercury toxicity as well. But the bottom line is she not only not left me, she held on to that promise. So from pain to purpose to promise has been like our family mantra. And believe me, we've hit that more than once. But that promise, I sit here. I sit here because of that promise. that everything God showed me, I've been able to spread that message, taking a message to the world. And through my program, Pompa program, you asked me, how many people have you impacted?
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands now, with an answer that God gave me for neurotoxic illness. When we look at why people are sick today, when we look at why diet change doesn't even work anymore, weight loss resistance, hormone problems, the explosion of thyroid, all the things we're talking about, autoimmune cancer, there is no doubt it is this explosion of toxins, especially in the last 60 years that we've been all exposed to, that are accumulated in my brain, my body. And I believe God gave me a unique answer for it, and I wish it was as simple as me telling people just sit in a sauna and do the next biohack and, walk around without your shoes on. I mean, I'm not saying any of those things are bad. They're actually really good. But, real detox is a cellular issue. You have to fix what's broken there. When that cell loses that ability or it slows down the ability to get rid of toxins, now you start turning on the genes of autoimmunity. Now you start getting sicker, and wondering what the heck's going on. The cells become so toxic and inflamed, you can't even get the good nutrition in. You're spending thousands of dollars on good supplements, can't even get them in. Oh, and by the way, because it's so toxic and inflamed, you can't even get the toxins out. So you become cellularly toxic going, what the heck happened to my life? The only reason I know any of it is because I went through that.
I could see that, you're a healer. And as a healer, I feel your pain, that it was probably hard for you to feel like you couldn't even heal yourself.
Yeah, that was the embarrassment.
Yeah.
Remember I said that? I said I was so embarrassed I hid it, until I couldn't hide it anymore.
Well, that's a natural, normal feeling, but you've turned it into something amazing. I mean, we were talking earlier, 400 people work for Pompa.
Mm-hmm. Pompa Co.
Pompa Co.
Yeah.
And are helping others with cellular detox, which is what you focus on, which you just described.
Mm-hmm. So one of the studies originally with these fillings was on a sheep, and they showed that it was throughout the organs. After when they put them out, they looked at the sheep. Okay, great. Here's what there's no mercury, can't find it in the heart, liver, tissues, brain, whatever. Put the amalgams in, and now look, right? There's all this mercury distributed through the body, particularly the brain.
Yeah.
And the criticism then was, well, you chose sheep. They chew harder than humans. Well, they said right in it, we chose sheep because they chew, right? Because we wanted to see if that makes it worse. Well, then that was repeated in monkeys as well, the amalgam fillings. So there was these studies, and this was just a fun study to show. It wasn't a study, just a fun demonstration to show this is what how that mercury comes off.
And of course, going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's not like everybody with amalgam fillings is their bucket going to tip.
That's right.
For some people, yes. Some people, no. I had tons of amalgam fillings. And I remember, oh man, this is a long time ago now. I was like, I got to get these out. Now, the dentist I went to, I remember it was like this whole, these machines over my head. He had like my teeth like in this contained thing. He was like in a hazmat gear.
Because
I mean, it was like a whole thing.
Absolutely.
And then he had like ozone. I don't even remember the whole thing, but I mean, it was like he treated it like this was like
toxic
my
hazard.
My mouth was basically like a melting nuclear reactor. Is basically what the
By the way, dentistry has the worst health statistics. Literally. I mean, the highest suicide rate. I think something passed it lately. I don't know what
like Mad Hatters?
Yeah, exactly. They have like all these numbers that are like off the chain. Drilling those fillings out, you're vaporizing. The dentist is getting exposed too. That's why they had that. So Hal Huggins is the father of biological dentistry. He was the one that realized, at least made the argument that, hey, we have to take these out, but we have to protect ourselves and the patient because we're when you drill that, the same thing's happening in a much greater degree. Mercury vapor is just going like this.
All right. So you identified for your situation, your mercury as the primary culprit. As the primary culprit. Right. So I assume you engaged in some kind of chelation to remove the mercury from your body, right?
I did, but see, that's where, when I started digging, I said, holy cow, there is so much controversy. There's so many different opinions. There's so much going on. people getting IVs getting worse, horror stories. I mean, so it put me on a big journey before
You mean controversy in how to get the mercury
how
out?
to get the mercury out.
What is the best chelator?
Right.
How to do
Chlorella, use this, use that, just sit in saunas.
EDTA, whatever.
DMPS.
Right.
And so it really put me on a journey.
Where'd you end up?
I'm dyslexic and I have the ability I read slow. It was my greatest insecurity as a child because you're considered dumb when you don't have dyslexia, or when you have dyslexia, still have it. But I can accumulate a lot of knowledge and put things together. It's like my superpower because of my dyslexia. But I spent a lot of time putting things together. And then what did I end up? I ended up realizing that, again, so many of these cellular pathways are affected. And again, just the ability to read literature, dig deep in this. So that has to be fixed. Chelators have to be used correctly in their half-life. Some of them, better than others. And what people will say, just do one IV of DMPS or EDTA. I learned that the hard way because I did that thinking this is going to be the answer. And I got massively worse. I said I felt better at first, and then all of a sudden my wife thought we're going to have to check you in because I went off the deep end. What happened was it pulled a lot. The chelator goes away. It's the half-life. It stays up in the blood, 10 hours approximately. And then all of a sudden it starts redistributing and I'm out of my mind. So a lot of what I learned, I'm going to be honest, it was a lot of problem solving, figuring out what, right. And then finding literature and talking to people. It's like, well, here's what happened. This is why you have to use it, blah, 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 blah. So everything I put together literally was solving this problem. And I do believe in my heart, God led me there.
So, but specifically on the mercury, what do you think ended up working in terms of removing that from your body?
So it was a combination of keeping these cell important pathways open, working. I do whole lectures on the importance of the membranes in the cell and how they have to be fluid, how they have to be open to even move things out of the cell. I do, how to get cell energy from the mitochondria back up, because without that, you're never going to move mercury out, right? So what I teach is, first and foremost, we have to start upregulating these pathways. Secondly, we have to use chelators, but we have to use them within the half-life. So I brought up DMSA, DMPS, EDTA. They all have different half-lives. And I don't want to lose people here. What that means is, if you look at what's in the blood 6 hours from now, how much of that agent's still there, right? You understand a little bit about this probably from your research on vaccines. But so DMPS is a major chelator that people will use to get rid of mercury. It works great in an acute situation. Put a lot in, pull a lot out. You can save people.
Just so folks, chelators bind to the metal.
Chelator. Exactly.
Chelators bind to and there's lots of different kinds of chelators, but the idea of a chelator binds to
that's right,
all kinds of metals.
That's right.
Okay.
So these things, when you put them in, they go away in the blood. But the problem is your body starts mobilizing, and already has. And now you start redistributing it, much of which is going now more in your brain. And that's what it causes the crazies and the horror stories.
So how do you get the chelator to grab it and come out of your urine, your
so
poop?
One of the things is you have to keep the levels up long enough so you don't redistribute. And you have to do it for a certain amount of days. So let's say that the chelator has a half-life of 4 hours, like DMSA. That means that, or maybe it's a 6-hour half-life, you have to take it every 4 hours to keep that blood level up, and you have to keep on it for 3 or 4 days. That way, when you do stop, you don't get this massive redistribution. So learning that half-life, learning how to use these things correctly, along with keeping the cell upregulated, and then also haphazardly learn this the hard way. Gut binders are part of this process, meaning things that stay in the gut that don't reabsorb from the gut, because a lot of the toxins end up in the liver. They bind up to bile. Bile is used to digest and break down fat in the digestive system. The liver makes it, but the toxins go to the liver, bind to bile. You dump the bile to use it for digesting fat, and you bring these toxins with it. Here's the problem. Your body's designed to reabsorb bile so it doesn't have to create it. So you auto-intoxicate. You're bringing the toxins right back and causing redistribution that way. So I learned to use binders.
In your intestinal tract, basically, if you've got if you've got a mercury in there, you want something that's going to bind to it so the bile doesn't take it back into your.
Yep. So you have to use chelators. Chelators don't work in the cell. So imagine this. Watch this.
Yeah.
Watch this. Visuals worth 1,000 words. I know people are listening, so I'll, not watching, but I'll do both. Okay. So here's a cell. I'm drawing a cell if you're just listening. So there's pathways in here called glutathione pathways. Your cells has that ability to use glutathione to bring things out of the cell that shouldn't be there. It also protects your DNA. It's an antioxidant. Also, people have heard of methylation. It's a carbon and 3 hydrogens, but that plays a role even with glutathione. As methylation drops, glutathione drops. As glutathione drops, methylation drops. So these pathways in the cell, there's oxidase pathways, there's superoxide dismutase. I don't want to bore you, but there's all kinds of things that happen in here. Even these membranes are critical is the boss of what comes in and out of that. Okay. So I'm drawing a cell and I'm showing how these pathways are responsible to get good things in, bad things out. When people become extremely neurotoxic from a vaccine injury, from a moldy home, from amalgam fillings, these pathways literally are altered to the point where toxins just keep building up in the cell. Step 1, we get this all working. We get your membranes working. So now you can even get good nutrition in. Step 2, as the toxins come out, here's where we use chelators. Maybe it's DMPS, maybe it's EDTA. And there's been other chelators, but we use chelators out here as the water soluble that don't enter this cell that help escort the toxins out of the body. That's important because if we just got your cells working and it pushes toxins out, they redistribute because your body is overwhelmed already. Your liver's overwhelmed, your gut's overwhelmed. And then I explained this already, but like many of which make your way to your liver, your gut. But here's the problem. The liver, a lot of these toxins bind up to bile. They get dumped in the gut where they can reabsorb from there.
I remember when I had my amalgam fillings taken out, the protocol that I was put on, now it's been over a decade, I'm trying to remember it, was, I believe, chlorella.
Okay.
For binding in the intestines.
Yes.
So that the idea was that that's not going to go into my bloodstream. That's only going to bind to the mercury in the intestines. Plus cilantro, because I would think I was told that
moves it from the brain.
Moves it from the brain, and then alpha lipoic acid, which takes it from the blood to the intestine.
Well, alpha lipoic acid, as actually out of the ones you just mentioned, is the only real chelator, but there's issues with it. So in my brain phase, so we do a prep phase, and then we do a brain phase.
I'm just impressed I remember that, frankly.
That was pretty impressive.
I actually
And so, but a lot of what you said actually needs...
So I should have done it the other way. Cilantro, alpha lipoic acid into chlorella. So the idea is brain, blood, intestines.
So it's like, so that process right there, like there was a lot of people got sick from. Here's why. Chlorella, cilantro are weak binders. So in other words, if you use them in in a petri dish, you go, oh wow, look, they bind. But in the body, when they hit the microbiome, they actually really suck. They're weak binders. They're not like DMPS or DMSA where they're a strong bind. It doesn't
really
let go.
It.
Yeah. So when I took those things, because I did some of these protocols, right? I tried it all, and it's like the street cleaners that go down the street. You see this plume of dust and it just settles back down. That's what those weak binders do. That was another story my wife could tell when I did cilantro, and I was doing the cilantro and chlorella, ironically enough. So like this day, I was doing similar protocol, right? Because that's what dentists and other people were doing back then.
Because
we've learned a lot.
Because wasn't there a study of folks who were having miso soup with cilantro, and they found when they had miso soup, they were excreting more metals.
Yeah,
am I remembering that correctly?
Now, a healthy person can do it and be, hey, excrete some metals, right? There was that story, right? But the problem is it's a weak binder.
Okay.
And you're redistributing a lot.
I got it. It's not getting it out of your body.
Exactly.
Okay.
So those are weak binders. Opposite of like EDTA, DMSA, those are strong binders, but you have to use them correctly in the half-life.
You're saying along with fixing your cellular making sure your cells are properly letting things in and out at the same time.
Yeah, that if that's not fixed, you don't stay well. You don't get well.
How did you figure that out, or how did you come to that as like the approach?
I could talk about it. I love giving people credit where credit's due. It was a lot of work I was reading on the cell membranes because that's kind of where your hormone. I was reading when I was trying to fix my hormones. I realized the reason my blood works normal, it's because hormones don't work in the blood, they work in the cell. They have to connect to receptors, but when your cells are inflamed, it damages the receptor and you can have hormone problems with normal blood work. So I was trying to solve hormone problems when I learned a lot about the membrane. And then I found a guy, Ed, he started a company called Bio, and he was talking all about the membrane and detox and how important here, there, right? And my dyslexic mind just put pieces together. How to bind things in the gut. A guy named Richie Shoemaker was helping mold patients with something called cholestyramine that bind bile. And I was like, wait a minute, this solves the problem of why we have people auto-intoxicate. So we need to be using binders. So this step 1, 2, 3 system came together, literally, trial and error. God sending me probably to the wrong, going down the wrong road, so I thought, but I learned. So yeah, I learned all about what it took to move toxins from the cell. And then you start to learn about redistribution. How do we bind them? How you use chelators, how you bind it in the gut. Anyways, again, I wouldn't know any of it, Aaron, if I didn't get sick.
Well, I don't want to say I'm glad you got sick because that's not nice. But obviously, I just, we were talking to one of the nice young women who works for you, and she was just telling me,
Andrea,
just how your protocol in many ways saved her from a serious
10 years
injury.
ago, she found me drawing a cell and explaining to people, you got to fix this if you want to get well, right? And she was like, that's me, right? So, that's why my thyroid hormone, that's why I have she had Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis. Here we are 10 years later. She doesn't have that. She got off all her medications. And of course, told she had to be on it her whole life, right? The body can reverse autoimmune if you get to the cause. She did this exact process and everything that I've been teaching. And, she's one of many. She joined the mission.
Yeah. And, in many ways, obviously we deal with a lot of folks with vaccine issues saying that she believes that the vaccine was the etiology of her injuries. And so, obviously a lot of folks who, listen to what stuff I do is folks who've been injured by these products. And so if you can help people with vaccine injuries, you'll be a hero to a lot of folks. In so many ways, the harms are varied and hard to treat.
Very.
And I remember the biomedical interventions that a lot of doctors have continued to do, and I've seen a lot of kids improve on those. It sounds like you've got basically it sounds like and I could be wrong about this. It sounds like it's biomedical plus cellular health in some respects.
Yes.
I don't know. You tell me if I got that wrong.
You got that right.
Is that about right?
Yeah. It is.
So you're adding cellular health along with the biomedical component
because you'll never get well if you don't fix the cell and what's broken and the pathways that detox every day.
How come I never hear about that? How come I
don't know. Right now, cellular seems to be a hot topic, cellular detox. And Andrea, who you just mentioned, is always telling me, don't do what you always do. It's like I've been talking about fasting for many years. I studied it in the 90s. Now everyone's talking about fasting. Ketosis, I've been using ketosis diets. And again, I preach diet variation. Ketosis is not a diet. It's something that you can move in and out of. It's a metabolic state. It's a survival mechanism. But anyways, I've been teaching these things for years, and people start teaching it all of a sudden, and then I tend to move on. She's like, don't do this with cellular detox because God gave you this.
Oh, you mean stick with it?
Stick with it.
Well, look, if it's working.
But no, sometimes I just go, okay, I'll just, I want to study this now, right? No, this is what's saving lives. And, she keeps me on track because the message that I'm called to take to the world is that, you have to fix the cell to get well. That's what's broken. It's not as easy as just taking chlorella, cilantro, DMPS, DMSA, chelators. If that got us well, it'd be so easy. But it's not like that. You have to fix the very pathways.
The root cause of illness.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. The root cause. You get to that, God designed our bodies to heal. And now we're really simplifying it. You remove the interference.
Yeah.
God designed our bodies to heal. And that is a principle that somehow was instilled in me as, I think, a kid. It's like, I don't know what it is, but I've always looked for the cause of things.
So, I mean, in many ways, it is you're healing the harms from modernity.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
kind of, in many ways, which is now why your videos all make sense.
Yes.
And now it is, when you pop up on the feed, and now it all makes sense. And why you have such passion for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Pain to purpose.
And
by the way, that bucket, right? What are my videos about? The one thing people can control without understanding. I've trained doctors 20 years on that process that I just showed. I have coaches in Pompa program that teach people this process so they can do it themselves. I mean, that's what Pompa program is. But what people can do right now is they can stop the influx. So if a bathtub was overflowing, we had all this damage, that's the symptoms everyone's getting right now from the anxiety, brain fog, gut problems, right? It's like, well, look, we can mop up this and do this and take that, right? Try to deal with the damage. But at one point, we have to slow down what's going in that bathtub upstairs, right? If we can slow it down, now maybe we can open up the drains.
Well, it's beautiful to take a painful experience, turn it into something beautiful. Everybody I think does have a calling. Sounds like you found yours on this.
Yeah, it found me.
I found you, or your wife forced you to do it. That's a good wife.
God used my wife. We'll say that. I'm always like, my wife was right. Well, God was right through my wife.
How many years, by the way, from starting to get sick until you finally actually healed yourself? How many years was that journey?
Well, yeah, 1999. It was like I was very sick. 2000, 2001, 2002. Those were dark years. 2003, I think that's when I started putting it together, getting the stuff out of my brain. 2004 was better. 2005, I would have considered myself healed, although I wasn't. I became very chemically sensitive because my neuroimmune system was like, I'm going to protect you. We call it a cellular danger response. So I found myself with normal energy, sleeping through nights, but I also found myself like I felt normal, and now I enter this moldy building and I'm out of my mind, or I got sat next to someone with cologne and I can't think. So I had to figure out then how to get my body out of this cellular danger response, tone it down so I could live a normal life. So it was kind of step one, step two. But those years were critical.
So by 2007,
yeah,
healed.
I would say I was through. And by the way, we had another tragedy in 2004. We inherited 2 kids. So I had 3 biological at this time. Because once I got well enough, we had a new baby. So that had just happened. And then we got a phone call that my wife's cousin, murder-suicide. The husband shot her and then shot himself. 2 kids in the house, 7-year-olds, boy and a girl. The boy was vaccine damaged on the autism spectrum, sensory integration, Asperger's, and we'd go to visit them and it would be like, oh my gosh, like, how do they deal with this? I don't think I could ever deal with that. I said, all right, oh my gosh. And then these 2 kids landed in our lap, murder-suicide. And that changed our life again. That was 2004. And I remember the night, Marilyn and I were out
suicide
of the parents. Oh. So the husband shot her and shot himself, and they were in the house. And they came out, and he said, go back to your room. And Olivia, my daughter, who's 29, about to be 30 years old, 29 years old, went back to her room. Her brother hid under a table, watched the father shoot him, and then shot himself. They heard that. They came out, and they both described they saw his white socks, and they watched him take his last breath. They went next door.
How old were they?
They were 7.
Oh, my God.
Anyways, we ended up with those kids, the boy on the spectrum. And I always say, he was my second patient. I don't know if exactly, but
you were your first.
Yeah. I took everything that I learned and I started applying it to him because here I am. So I didn't finish that story.
What year was this?
2004.
Okay,
so
I
this
was saying, like close to the end of your journey.
Exactly. I was much better. Matter of fact, I remember we were out to dinner and I said to my wife, man, it's so good to have my life back because we were out to dinner. I was like, felt normal, no energy, right? And then I'm telling you, it was just a couple days later, we got this call.
No,
and I remember saying to Lisa, that was the mother, she asked if anything ever happens to kids, will you take the kids? And we said, yeah, of course. We were willed the kids.
How long before that tragedy did that conversation happen?
That was 1 year.
1 year.
Matter of fact, the life insurance policy was a week to the good. And that was a whole thing. We ended up in the courts because the grandmother didn't want us to take the kids, but she didn't want her mother to have anything to do with the kids. So we got wrapped up into legal stuff. I mean, trust stuff. All of it worked out well. I mean, these kids are amazing. Dr. Olivia, I said you should interview her, and she'll tell that story from her perspective. But now she is in this mission. She, because of vaccines, as a young girl, she didn't have, she was the normal one, right? The boy was the one like, oh my gosh, Dylan, my son Dylan. And when she hit a teenager, she started getting sensory integration. She started getting fibromyalgia. So both of them went, everything I teach, right? So Olivia now coaches my coaches.
Huh.
That changed her life. And Dylan's. If you met Dylan now, you would never know. He was, on the spectrum, and he's an amazing human.
You did the same protocol with him that you did with yourself. Did he also have metal toxicity?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he had, part of his perfect storm. My membrane work that I teach, I always credit more of that work with what I ended up keep driving for Dylan. I remember having him take this thick oil, phosphatidylcholine. Anyways, long story, but there was a time where I had to sit next to him on the bed because he didn't want to do anything I was trying to get him to do. Autistic parents know how hard this is, right? Taste of things, this, that. And I remember, just saying, Dylan, you're not good, right? I'm trying to figure out where we are on this. Something's wrong. Yep. And I was like, can you just trust me? Because I wouldn't say I have exactly what you have, but I went through exactly all those feelings you have. I know I felt them too. And, and I'm like, can you just trust me? And that day, he looked at me and he, with every bit of what he could, and he said, yes. That was a tipping point for, him just knowing that he had best interest at heart, and it was tough. Because we had a grandmother on the other side making our life hard, saying, why would you want them to eat these foods? They're trying to starve them. We had CYS show up at our house. I mean, it was nuts, man. My life got nuts. So here I am. We went from 2 kids, a brand new baby, to 5 in 6 weeks. And I'm not even perfectly well yet. I'm celebrating I'm well. 2 kids to 5 in 6 weeks. It's like my life just went what direction? And now I got this kid in my house that can't sit on toilets, upside down in chairs. What's going on? He was so sensory integration. He would go into rages because he couldn't stand hearing people chew.
And you got CPS called on you for trying to feed him healthy food.
Twice.
For feeding him healthy food.
Twice. The funny part is we had this Mexican housewife. God love her, man. She was her name is Esther. Esther's still a queen, man. She's still going at 90 something.
Uh-huh.
And Esther made all this incredible, healthy, organic Mexican food. Literally, the police come in our house. I wasn't home. We weren't home, my wife and I. Esther's there. And Esther's like, you're here? What? Well, we're here to make sure there's food in the house because the grandmother was saying that we were starving the kids. And they're looking, and she's like, well, if you want to sit down, you can sit down. They're looking at this lay of food that like Esther did this all the time. And they're like, it's kind of embarrassing, but can we look in the cabinets just to make sure there's food? They look in the cabinets, plenty of food. Yeah, thank you. That was the first CYS call, right? But yeah, so the grandmother was working against us, and that led to a big court thing. And, headlines read at one point, chiropractor steals from orphans. And, And
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah, dude.
There was a newspaper article?
Yes. Yeah. And it said those words.
Steals from orphans?
Yeah, there's something worse than murdering someone. And I think it's stealing from orphans.
And how does one get to that conclusion?
Well, it became this battle, with the family member. And it became, them saying that, they're not spending every dollar on the kids, which was true, though. I mean, meaning like we were taking the money they were giving us and we were spending it like a family, right? We ended up adopting the kids. So, I don't know that I would have done it even differently, right? But they could prove that $166,000 was definitely not spent just on those kids. I'm like, well, I think it's more than that. But the problem is what you're missing is I'm spending my money on them too, meaning we're spending it as a family.
How do you do that? Like, do you allocate the mortgage? Do you
Yeah, well, it should have been tracked perfectly. We ended up just settling, paying back every dollar it was ever spent. I mean, that was just the easy way out, right? So, we didn't get any help raising the kids, but God took care of us.
You didn't split the baby.
We didn't split the baby.
Right.
No.
You chose the baby. Yeah. You let them keep
And those kids are such a blessing. Like I said, I can't wait to interview Olivia. So it's pain to purpose, man. The good that came out of that. Olivia is the only out of 5 kids. Olivia is the only one, is Dr. Olivia. Mm-hmm. So she's carrying on. My other kids run the business. They're business minds, but she's the one that, is carrying on the torch of a Dr. Pompa. So.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's the story.
It's
still just a part of it.
Now I know where the passion comes from.
Yeah. No doubt.
Do you, I know what I often think about before a big hearing or, before I have to do something in court or a Senate hearing. Is there something you think about? Is there anything, maybe not. Maybe, you're so energetic. Maybe you just go in and do it. I don't know.
Here's what I want to say to people.
Something you use to motivate yourself?
I do,
yeah. Part of all of this?
Yeah, this is what I use right here. It means so much to me. And I know Andrea over there knows exactly what I'm going to say. It was from pain to the purpose. But remember, it was the promise God gave my wife that I didn't believe. Now I do. But from pain to purpose to promise. But so many people hearing this have their story, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to encourage them with this. There's a place in the Bible that says, be strong and courageous. And those are the English words, but I'm going to give you the Hebrew. And the Hebrew words are Rak Chazak Amats. The Hebrew words are powerful, way more powerful than the translation of be strong and courageous. Those are very linear words. But Rak Chazak Amats, I could tell you each word and its meaning is so much deeper. Rak means if you just did one thing. And Chazak means physically standing in, digging in, a military. It's a war cry. Like we'll die before we back up. And, that's where troops got. Rak Chazak. And Amats is more of a spiritual boldness. Like David went up to Goliath because he knew, Goliath was much bigger, but he knew his God was better. And that's, he went up with Amats. And he knew where that stone was going to lie. So Rak Chazak Amats, in the Bible, when you look, if people research be strong and courageous, you'll see there's plenty of scripture around that. But each place is when God was moving somebody into a promise. They're about to step in and fear comes upon them. So as one example, and I could give many, one example here, Israel is about ready to cross the Jordan, to step in to the promise God gave them, 40 years of wandering. Here we are at the threshold. And all they saw was 31 armies who wanted them dead. All they saw was excuses and fear and they wanted to go back. And God spoke through Joshua, Rak Chazak Amats, Israel. As Joshua, before Moses on his deathbed, said, I can't lead these people anymore. I'm done. And God spoke through Moses to Joshua, Rak Chazak Amats, Joshua, not be strong and courageous, meaning really the definition really means I've already stepped into the promise for you. It's his strength, not yours. That's the way David went up to Goliath. He knew it was God's strength. He had Amats, right? So, as Israel was ready to come in, Rak Chazak Amats, I've got it. I'll deal with the 31 armies. So we, as humans, we stay stuck in our fear. And I can tell you right now, God has a promise for people out there that are hurting so many ways. The promise he does, because he loves to give us promises, right? But the fear keeps us from stepping in. So I want to encourage people, especially the people watching this that are hurting, Rak Chazak Amats. Maybe you have a child that is damaged, because you probably get plenty of those. Rak Chazak Amats. Let God step before you. He will move you into the healing. He will move you into the promise he has. And that's, if we have to rely on our strength, David didn't. We're dead. And yeah, I'd be nervous. But that's not what Rak Chazak means. It's him. So it's him, not you. There goes the stress.
Amen.
Amen.
Daniel, I appreciate you coming and talk with me.
Yep, I love it. Great talk.
It's really great.
Great.
Now I know your story, which is what I wanted to know.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
You got it, brother. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Yep.